The Phantom Karate Chop. It was a sweltering afternoon in the emergency department, the usual bustle replaced by an unnatural quiet. My partner, a grizzled veteran in his late 60s, was outside taking a much-needed break, a cigarette dangling from his lips. A call came in over the intercom, an ambulance transporting a patient from a local high school. As the stretcher rolled into the stabilization room, the patient, a middle-aged man, smiled and exchanged pleasantries with the paramedics. He seemed almost cheerful, a stark contrast to the usual pallor of those brought in by ambulance. I approached him, curiosity piqued. "What seems to be the problem?" "Karate chop to the throat," he replied, his grin widening. I blinked, taken aback. "Someone hit you?" No, I was sitting at my desk minding my own business when it felt like someone had karate chopped me right in the throat. A shiver ran down my spine. And then what? It shot down my arm and one leg, like a bolt of lightning. Goosebumps erupted on my arms. As I leaned out to see if the charge nurse had heard, I caught sight of her smirking. "Get me 3 nurses and a stat CT scan," I ordered, my voice barely a whisper. "Start 3 IVs and call his wife," I ordered, my voice barely a whisper. The patient's condition was deteriorating rapidly. A cursory examination revealed a thready pulse in his right wrist, a loud bruit in the right carotid region, and an absent right pedal pulse. The symptoms were consistent with a catastrophic vascular event. If only it were a karate chop, not an unforeseen chapter in his life story. As the nurses worked to stabilize the patient, I couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister was at play. This was no ordinary case of a stroke or heart attack. The karate chop sensation, the unusual symptoms, and the rapid deterioration pointed to something far more extraordinary. "Hey, Doc, you look pretty serious," the patient said, his voice laced with a hint of amusement. "I feel fine, no need to worry my wife." I forced a reassuring smile. "I understand you're feeling well, but we're taking every precaution. Please expect a flurry of activity. Is there anyone else you'd like us to call?" I briefly explained my concerns about his examination, emphasizing the life-threatening nature of his condition. "This is a serious situation," I said, my voice firm. "You're joking," he replied, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I'm only 45 and in great shape. Are you sure?" "Certain," I stated, my heart heavy. "This teacher didn't deserve this diagnosis. We'll get a quick CT scan, but we need to transfer you to another hospital with a particular type of surgeon." I asked the HUC to put the helicopter on standby and paged the cardiothoracic surgeon on call as we whisked the patient out to CT. The scans confirmed my worst fears, a thoracic dissection. The rupture was massive, extending down into the abdominal aorta and femoral artery. This was a catastrophic event, a medical emergency of the highest order. "Dispatch the flight immediately," I ordered, my voice barely a whisper. "We need an accepting doctor before we can dispatch," the charge nurse replied, her voice filled with concern. "No, we don't," I insisted. "Not in this case. They will take him without question." I relayed the preliminary findings to the surgeon, a man who dealt with daily catastrophes as if it were a mundane routine. With a flat, almost nonchalant tone, he uttered, "Get him here. I'll meet him in the OR." And then he hung up on me. A quick trip back to the ER revealed his wife, her face a mask of confusion and concern. "What's the big deal?" she asked, her voice rising. She had interrupted her shopping trip with friends, assuming her husband was fine. When I explained the gravity of the situation, her reaction was immediate and visceral. "We don't even have a will," she shrieked, tears streaming down her face. "Doctor, if I make a quick one, can you sign it as a witness?" The request was incredible, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. As the flight crew arrived, I redirected her, my voice gentle but firm. "In the final moments of your time together, your focus should not be on legal documents or medical procedures." Her eyes, filled with a mix of tears and a fierce determination, met mine. She nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. As the flight crew rapidly departed, she turned to me, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you," she said, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Hey, Doc, we need you in the trauma bay," a nurse called out, her voice filled with urgency. "There's a 4-car pileup and we need all hands on deck." I briefly touched the patient's wife's shoulder, offering a reassuring squeeze. "Please drive safely," I urged her. "Your family needs you as much as he does." With a heavy heart, I turned and followed the nurse, my mind racing with the potential chaos that awaited me in the trauma bay. As I finished charting for the shift, a nagging feeling settled in. I asked the charge nurse how our aorta patient had fared in the OR. Her response was a heavy blow. She apologized and commented that the surgeon had called back while I was dealing with an angry drug seeker. Our patient had died on the table. Although I had a hunch of the outcome, it still hit me with a nauseating gut punch. The loss of a patient, especially one so young and full of life, was always a difficult pill to swallow. But this case, with its extraordinary circumstances and the tragic end, left a lasting mark on my soul. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a parallel to be drawn between the patient's experience and my own. Perhaps in some twisted way this case had served as a warning, a glimpse into the future. The thought was unsettling, but it also fueled a newfound determination. I would live my life to the fullest, cherishing every moment, aware that time was precious and unpredictable.